Oh, oh yes, the texture. Oh, the salt combines with, what am I going to tell you? This is a 3-pound avocado. This is a Choquette variety avocado, and Choquettes can grow to 3 pounds and even larger. Most people don't know that avocados have different varieties. Most people are used to the common Hass that you see in the supermarket. Every seed produces a unique tree that gives us a new and unique avocado variety. And about 100 years ago, a guy by the name of Remy Choquette, or Remy Choquette. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I just looked this up on Wikipedia. But about 100 years ago, a guy named Remy Choquette planted a seed in his yard somewhere in Miami. It grew a tree, and that tree started to give these really huge, shiny, and delicious tasting avocados. People like to eat them. The trees were very productive. The trees were also resistant to disease. And a new commercial avocado variety was born. And he named it after himself, the Choquette. It is a very popular variety amongst both commercial and at-home growers. And for you avocado geeks, it is flowering type A. Let's cut into this sucker so you can see what it looks like. I'm just going to bisect it right down the middle. And here we have a cut open Choquette. Now, the first and most obvious difference, of course, is the size. Look at how much more flesh there is in the Choquette variety than we have here in the Hass. I mean, look, you could fit a Hass inside the void left by the pit from the Choquette. The next very obvious difference is color. If you look at the Hass variety, it is more of a greenish flesh, whereas the Choquette is a bright, bright yellow. In addition to size and color, another major difference is texture. The Hass variety is very mushy. Like, look, if I squeeze it, look, it kind of like turns to a paste real easy. Whereas the Choquette is a lot firmer. Like, I'm giving this a good squeeze. It doesn't want to mush into a paste. I can't even do this and still show my face. If I squeeze this, it's more like it's going to squeeze more solid chunks of fruit out, where the Hass variety just kind of turns to a paste. Another way to feel this would be to just take a knife and just kind of insert it in the Hass, and it just comes off like room temperature butter. It's just real spreadable. Whereas with the Choquette, you kind of more like cut yourself either a cube or a slice. You kind of could cut it out of there. And the Choquette, I would say, sticking with the butter analogy, probably has more the texture of butter, not right out of the refrigerator, but butter that still hasn't completely thawed. It's not totally spreadable yet to put on your toast, say. And it's got more texture to it. Let me take a quick bite of that. Yeah, and I actually have to chew through it. And the reason for this difference is oil content. The Hass avocado is about 20% oil content, whereas the Choquette maxes out at about 13%. So the Hass avocado has about 55-60% more oil in it than the Choquette. Let me just tilt the camera here and I'll show you how we eat one of these things. If you ever run across a true avocado lover, here's how they eat their avocado. They won't even cut it in half like I just showed you. They'll take it whole like this, but I'm going to simulate that with this half here. They'll just kind of cut themselves a wedge like this. More like when people are cutting melon. They just break off their wedge like this. See? Now you'd have a hard time doing that with a Hass. Let me demonstrate. See, the Hass is so mushy and creamy, it's kind of hard to cut it like that without damaging the flesh. Now, I'm being very, very careful, but I cut myself a little piece of Hass like that. But it's not like you're going to chow into these. They're too small. But the way we eat these, we cut a little wedge like this. Now, I like to salt and pepper them. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Then we just kind of bite into it like a piece of watermelon or cantaloupe or anything like that. Oh man, I love these Choquettes. Another nice thing about them too is, look, the skin comes right off. Like, the flesh doesn't stick to the skin. See that? It just peels right off, nice and clean. So you take the fruit, you just kind of eat it. Now, most of you, sorry, I'm talking with my mouth full. Most people, when they think of avocados, they think of it as an ingredient. It's something you make guacamole with, or you spread it onto bread, or maybe you cut it up and put it into a salad. Maybe it's an ingredient in a piece of sushi, right, inside a roll. But these type of avocado, these Florida varieties we grow down here, you could actually eat them as a standalone snack. And like I said, this is how we eat them. This is how the locals eat them. Man. I watch these videos where people do taste tests, and they sit there and they try something and they eat it and they nod their heads and they describe the flavor and all that kind of stuff, which I guess I didn't do with this. But the Choquette I will describe as buttery in taste. I know the Hass is more buttery in texture, but the Choquette actually has a buttery and a sweet flavor to it. It's definitely more mild than the Hass, definitely more mild than the Monroes that are growing behind me right now, definitely more mild even than this Hall. But such a good flavor. And every night my wife and I will eat half of one of these when they're in season. We cut it up on a plate, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, some oil, and we just sit there and devour it. We put the other half in the fridge and we have that the next day. Now, part of the smile on my face has to do with the knowledge that I grew this myself. So whenever you eat something you grew yourself, it always tastes a little bit better. But this Hass variety, I bought this at the supermarket. This was grown in Mexico. It says right here on the label, Aguacate de Mexico, right? But even these things, I just love them. Yeah, it is so much more creamy. It's just melting in my mouth. This feels more like I bit into like a pat of butter that's been sitting all day at room temperature. And as you know from cutting these things, it's a little harder to get the skin off. The flesh likes to stick to them, and sometimes the skin breaks, but it's so worth it. So yeah, Hass variety, so creamy, so good. You could taste that higher oil content. You could feel that texture difference. But the Choquette, oh, so good. So if you've been paying attention to this video, you've learned that there are different varieties of avocado, and that they are harvested at different times per year, and that some of them grow to 3 or more pounds. Some of them are the equivalent of 12 of the common Hass variety that you find in the supermarket. And you learned a way to eat the avocado like the insiders do. You also learned that the Hass is 95% of the market, and all of these other varieties represent 5% of the market. These are hard to get. Unless you live in South Florida or the Caribbean, you're typically not going to see these kind of avocados on your supermarket shelves. Now, luckily for you, I sell them at our website, guacfarm.com, guacfarm.com, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. Now armed with all this new avocado knowledge, I'm sure your already great experience with avocados will get even better. If you think you'd like to try one of these Choquettes, or any of our varieties for that matter, go to guacfarm.com, guacfarm.com. I'm running a little late because I told my son and his friends I'd take them to a high school football game. So while I go do that, you go to guacfarm.com, and I will see you on the next video.